Well, I literally said the event guide would be coming out today if we didn't get any other surprises on JP, but would you look at that? A great surprise that we got over on the JP version of the game. If you do not know what this is another 4-star ticket that we're going to be getting for the 3,000 day campaign over here on the JP version of the game. And I wanted to do a little bit of a video kind of talking about some of the good options that you have available to you over here. And hey, look, I'm always telling you guys, maybe just start a JP account so you can start getting some of these goodies. I believe we're also getting 30 cent quartz, so just kind of run on in here and clear Singularity F, as you can see right here, to make sure that you actually grab your free 5-star ticket and the 30 cent quartz, because moving after this, we should be getting Ordeal Call 2, and you have no idea who's going to be coming out for that. I mean, we know the dragon snake looking dude is the main Ordeal Call 2 person, but we don't know who the 4-star is going to be. And Durga was certainly a surprise for Ordeal Call 1, and then we also got Medusa Saber, who came right after that. So getting an extra multi might be the difference between you getting that new servant and not getting them. But without further ado, let's talk about some of the 4-star options you should be considering if you're going to pick up one of these 4-star units. Now, I believe one of the easiest ones for me to recommend is actually going all the way down here to the bottom to the extra class, because you have some very, very powerful options over here, but probably one of the strongest ones you can get is going to be Eris over here. Summer Eris is a very, very strong single target arts avenger that just does ludicrous amounts of damage, and kind of like, say, someone like Summer Kama, she has a damage mod that she can pretty much put on anybody, right? It's not really reliant on them being like Earth attribute or Man attribute. She pretty much makes her own damage mod and just does ludicrous levels of damage. If you're going to pick up someone, she can definitely be a great help to you. But not just her. I think other ones that can also be very strong would be someone like Hephaestus over here. She's a very straightforward and simple servant. I would probably still go for Eris over her or MHXX, who I'm also going to recommend. But if you do have kind of a personal preference, let's say maybe you're more of a Saberface enjoyer, right? Or you just really like the fact that Hephaestus has a Giga Chad massive battery, any of the three of them can be very helpful for you, right? Eris is just a very good damage dealing servant. MHXX over here has a very just solid, nice kit. You know, she's packing invincibility, Pierce Invul, very strong against sabers, and also threat against humanity, which will be very useful to you as a newer player, because that's a lot of the end game bosses, right? Like some of your beasts and some of the trees from the different lost boats and stuff like that. She'll be able to help you clean those guys up. But then Hephaestus is just kind of like, imagine like a 4-star Medea. Medea has a value in that she has a massive battery. You can bring her to some 90 plus or 90 plus content. Hephaestus is kind of like a 4-star version of that, while also being a pretender, which might not be bad to pick up, which is also why I look at these three as very solid options for people, because this is a pretender, this is an avenger, and then this is a foreigner, right? So all of them can be very good in filling those roles that you might not really get, you know, that easily, right? Because a lot of these classes tend to be very limited, so you might have a hard time finding one of them. These are the ones that I would probably recommend for most players, as they have just the nice, just general applicability. But we will start now working from the bottom up, talking about some of the other 4-star servants you could pick up. If you're in need of a berserker, you have some strong options. I know Herc is going to be a lot of people's go-to, because it's like, oh, dude, you have Herc, you get the Bond CE, really good for soloing things. But keep in mind, for one, you could just re-roll and get Herc and save your ticket for a better option. But two, also remember that you are going to have to go in for that Bond CE, and it's not going to be something that you're going to get in like 2 days, unless you're an absolute madman and you just start farming free quest immediately, right? It's going to be a little bit for you to see the benefits of like Herc with his Bond CE, but not bad to pick up for maybe later on. But again, at the same time, I don't know if I'd recommend picking him up, especially if you have a newer account where you could just re-roll and grab him for free, right? So while he is very solid and might be tantalizing for some people, I would maybe turn your eyes over to someone like Kriemhild. Kriemhild has been a berserker that I've been using for quite a long time, and she just has all the right things going on. She has a 50% battery, a taunt that she could put on somebody else. Think of a like Emiya assassin type thing with the scapegoat skill, where she can pretty much keep herself safe, which is very nice considering that she's an arts unit, and that's already going to provide her a lot of survivability from Castoria's invincibility, the solemn defense and everything that she's got going on. And then at the worst case scenario, you can use Kriemhild to kind of take the heat off of herself for a little bit, or even use her to try to cycle out one of your Castorias, or maybe your waiver as a newer player, because, you know, even though Castoria and Morgan are going to be going up on rate up for this 3,000 day campaign, maybe you don't guarantee get Castoria, maybe your rolls go really, really bad, you still have the free waiver you can pick up. And if you want to kind of cycle out waiver for, say, an Asclepius or a Paracelsus, or even, I don't know, even just MASH or something along those lines, just to get different buffs going, she can be very good for stuff like that. And even though you will be using her at NP1, my Kriemhild is NP1, and I've gotten some pretty good usage out of her. I believe she also debuffs the enemy's arts and buster on her NP, so you start to see more and more damage as the fight goes on. If you're going to pick a Berserker, I really do recommend her. I think she's very, very strong if you're not going to go for any of the extra class people who are going to be a little bit more rare. That is kind of the problem with some of these other classes over here, like, say, your Berserkers, your Sabers, your Archers. You'll probably have other options you'll pick up eventually, whereas the extra class guys tend to be a little more rare to find. But if you don't want to pick them up, Kriemhild is very strong. Looking at assassins, realistically, I would stray away from these guys. I don't think any of these assassins are particularly going to bump up the value of your account. I mean, sure, you have people like, say, Okita, who recently got buffed, and you can do Black Grail quick farming with her, right? And she's really insane, but you gotta remember, that requires you to have your own Scotty, you gotta find a Black Grail, on top of you having an NP1 quick looper. I just don't think, for as good as she is, that as a newer player, it's really worth picking up. And then everyone else is just kind of okay. Like, Ushi, I think, is like a solid enough quick looper if you want to use her, but it's kind of the same problem. You don't have Scotty, and at least with some of the art servants, like, say, Kriemhild or MHXX or Eris, Castoria is going on rate up, so what you can do is you can take a lot of your Saint Quartz that you're going to be getting from farming the story and the free quest and the 30 from logging in for the 3,000 day campaign, and you can put that all towards Castoria and maybe get her, but we have no idea if Scotty's going to be coming back around anytime soon, or even Ruler Scotty, because she just came back for the summer event in her new costume, so who knows when a new quick support type servant is going to be coming back around. So maybe not the best to go for really any of the assassins, because while there are some solid units in here, you're probably not going to get a whole lot of value out of them, right? Then moving over to caster, these are some interesting options, because some of the interesting ones, especially taking into account that Castoria is going up on rate up, someone like Caskill is actually not that bad of an option, because recently for the anniversary, I believe it was, they buffed him to basically give everybody a battery, including himself. So he has, like, I think it's 30% for himself and then 20% for the party. So he has a 50% battery technically, but he's also providing NP for everyone else, on top of the attack, the crit star generation buff, the arts buff that he gives, and it makes it easier to get at his NP, where he's going to be providing a lot of stars, giving defense, giving crit damage. It's a very interesting pick. Do I think it's like the best thing you can be going for? Maybe, maybe not, because you probably are just going to be using like a friend Castoria and at least your waiver if you want to use an art servant, but he's not a bad idea to pick up, because they definitely made him a lot better. Nitocris is also, I think, a very, very valuable servant that you could pick up, because Nitocris has a big, girthy Giga Chat battery, but also has an insta-kill gimmick that is not that hard to proc, right? Because she not only buffs that chance of insta-killing people on her NP, but she also does it on one of her skills. And if you can get something like Demonic Bodhisattva, if you're really lucky, or just something that gives you more overcharge levels, it gets even easier to use her as a beginning, like, kind of start of game, like, wave clearing type person, or even for some events, because a lot of these, like, random bronze and silver enemies can be quite easily insta-killed by Nitocris, and she'll be a very convenient pick for you. Miyu's also not that bad. They've been buffing her a little bit recently. I think she can kind of be like a mini Merlin, I suppose, but I don't know if I'd go for her over Caskill or vice versa, but I do think someone like Nitocris is very valuable. Caster's actually just not a bad choice in general. It's just you probably are going to be able to pick up some more useful casters, and most of them are going to be supports anyway, right? So, but going for someone like Nitocris, I think, can be valuable. Same thing for Gilgamesh if you want to use him as kind of a support. I mean, obviously people like Summer Corday are good. Summer Wu is a very interesting pick as well, but you will probably find other people to fill those slots if you don't pick them up now. Although single target casters, if I remember correctly, there's not a whole lot of them that are super great. I mean, there's Ilya, there's Sanzo, and then there's like Corday, and I can't really think of any others that are coming to mind. I mean, AoE, you get Casterku, but he's NP1, so you can kind of consider some of those options as you look at this. But I think Caster's interesting. Then we move over to Ryder. And I know some people are going to have their eyes popping out their head being like, dude, Summer Mordred is an insane looper. I'm going to pick her up. And I'm just going to warn you right now, if you pick up Summer Mordred as an NP1 unit, she will loop 100% of her NP back, but she will not kill the enemies, right? Summer Mordred at NP1 really does struggle with actually securing the kills on enemies. And it's very entertaining to watch because you'll be like, wow, she refunded 100% back, but none of the enemies are dead. It's really, really funny. So I don't know, unless you're really lucky, maybe you do your Castoria pulls and you luck out and you pick up a Black Grail, then maybe you could pick up Summer Mordred if you really like Mordred and want to use her as your looping servant. But other than that, all the riders are just kind of okay. Like, there's obviously ones like, I think Astolfo could be useful because he has a 50% battery, but I'm not going to recommend you pick up Astolfo, right? Like, they're usually just kind of like decent enough units. I mean, Martha has her uses, right? Just having an on-demand party-wide heal and a debuff cleanse that can be useful, but I don't really think it's worth going for any of the riders, right? Like, I know Summer Mordred, because Castoria is out, is very tantalizing because she's a good looper, but again, just remember, NP1, not really the best. Now, I like Nikki a lot. That's more of a personal pick for me, but I would not recommend picking her up because you really don't get to use her all that often. So I don't really think picking any of the riders is a solid choice, right? Then we move over to the Lancers over here. Kind of a similar situation. You've got a lot of very solid options over here. Even people like, say, Summer Melt, who's a very strong looper, or Percival is also pretty solid as well. But at NP1, they might struggle just a little bit. Parvati also, I think, is a very tantalizing pick. But again, if you don't have your own Scotty, it's going to be really rough in getting those loopings kind of going. Plus, she is a quick unit, right? And now, I guess this is something that could kind of come to bite me. That we might get a really insane quick support type servant for Ordeal Call 2, right? But I don't know if I would bank my SR choice on the fact that we might get a new quick support, right? I mean, generally about like what, once a year we get like a really broken support type unit. I mean, we got Scotty in year 3, Castoria was year 5, year 6 we got 2 in Koyensky and Oberon, and then last year for year 7 we got Summer Scotty. So I don't know, maybe we're due for another broken support type servant. Maybe it will be a quick unit or something along those lines, but I don't know if I would go for Parvati, just kind of banking on getting somebody like that. And then again, like Melt and Percival are really good, but especially at NP1 I found that Melt Lilith can kind of struggle a bit. But I don't know, maybe you're really lucky and you pick up Black Grail and you can absolutely cook with your NP1 Melt Lilith over there. I just don't know if I'd recommend going for that, given that, again, NP1 she can kind of struggle a little bit. Archers, I feel like kind of in a very similar position to Lancers over here because you have stronger options. Like I just talked about Zenobia the other day because she hit the NA version, but at NP1, you can see some really good success with her. It's just, you're really relying on finding those face cards, right? At NP1, especially with no Black Grail. If you have Black Grail, again, kind of like, say, Ryder Mordred or like Melt Lilith, she can be a good option to go for as a looper because Black Grail definitely helps them out a lot at NP1. But if you don't, I don't know if it's that solid of a pick. I will say Emiya might be a very good future-proof pick because not only is he really good right now, but he can also swap between being an arts and a buster unit, so that might not be a bad pickup. And Emiya is also just generally pretty good, rocking really high crit damage. He can gen stars pretty decently. I mean, the dude's got a dodge, so he can also keep himself alive and, you know, more difficult content. He's just kind of like a solid all-arounder, which I guess is ironic for Emiya being an all-rounder. So I think he's not too bad to pick up. I mean, if you need like DPSs, I mean, like Asphataman's actually not that bad. I find a lot of people really downplay how good this guy actually can be. But again, if you're going to go for a DPS, a more single target route, I would recommend probably picking up one of the extra class people because extra class tends to be a little bit harder to come across. Saber, I think, is probably one of the more interesting ones because you do have people like Bargus in here where you have Hercules, who you really need to find his bond CE and you really need to just start racking up those bond points for him to really show his full potential. Bargus is one of those servants that outside of a really big NP, she's probably not going to die to any random enemy, so she could be a very good survivability pick, especially because I know that Bargus has exploded in popularity since she got her summer version and that she came out on NA, so if you're like, oh, I want to be able to use Bargus because I didn't pull her for Lost Belt 6, can't really stop you from doing that. She's solid enough. Siegfried, funny enough, also is pretty solid right now. They made him pretty nutty busted with his Trom buff, so can be a solid option. Although, again, I don't know if I would go for Siegfried specifically, but can help you out. They gassed him up a little bit. I mean, everyone here is just a very solid pick. Aside from, like, say, Nero, who might be waiting on getting another buff. Same thing for, like, Salter. They're kind of, like, on the cusp of being really good. And, again, like, for the same reason that I don't recommend going for any of the quick loopers, just hoping that we get another quick support type servant. I don't know if I'd pick up either one of them in hoping that they get a buff anytime soon. But then again, they're popular servants. They could just get a dummy, nutty, stupid, broken buff right around the corner. I mean, Salter got one that was pretty good, but I'd still like to see like maybe one more before she's like in that S tier higher upper echelon. But yeah, I mean, it's kind of going over it. It's like you have solid options. It's just, I think if you're a newer player versus someone who already has a JP account, definitely changes your perspective on things. Because let's say you already have been playing for a long time and you've got Scotty, you've got Ruler Scotty. Well, then you might not have any issue going up and picking up Parvati because you can make up for the loss of damage as an NP1 servant with the fact that you have Scotty and Ruler Scotty. You pretty much are just using triple Scotty system at that point to really make up for it. Or maybe you have Castoria already and you have Black Grill and you have Oberon, right? So you could just not care about Mordred being an NP1 servant and just pick her up and she'll do absolutely fine, right? Kind of adjust the information I'm saying and, my opinions that I'm throwing out there to where your account is on JP. But I do think the newer your account is, the more that maybe you want to lean towards someone like Caskill, who's good. Nitocris is very convenient at the beginning of the game. Kriemhild is a very good kind of just general DPS, being a berserker, having a big 50% battery, that's always very strong. And then if you are worried about, not having any extra class people, Hephaestus, Eris, and MHXX are all very, very solid options. But let me know who you are going to pick in the comments down below, especially if you are a JP player. But if you're an NA player, I guess this gives you some more to think about because NA is already waiting on the first SR ticket to come out, and now we have a second one to look out for in the near future. Well, not the near future, but you get what I'm saying. It'll be coming out, right? So if you're an NA player, you can be like, okay, so now maybe I don't have to go as hard on the Ibuki banner if you wanted Eris. No, yeah, Eris was on Ibuki's banner. I was like, wait, was she on Summer Scotty or Ibuki's? And I was like, no, wait, it was because it was like the double arts, like double trouble thing where you had the really good insane looper and the really good single target on that banner. But maybe you're like, I don't have to go summon on that banner as hard because I'll just pick up Eris for free or something along those lines. So let me know all that in the comments down below, and I will catch you guys in the next one. Peace, late guys.